This is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. I'm here once again with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and we're once again recording at Nutmeg with our engineer, Frank Verderosa. Our guest this week is an actor, producer, TV host, podcast host, and one of the busiest and most prolific stand-up comedians in the business. You've seen him on dozens of TV shows such as Curb Your Enthusiasm, How I Met Your Mother, Last Comic Standing, Mr. Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Sarah Silverman Project, Bob's Burgers, The Jim Gaffigan Show, and You're the Worst, as well as the host of his own series, including The Benson Interruption, The High Court, and Pitch Off with Doug Benson. You may also have seen his work in features like the Lego Batman movie, Run, Ronnie, Run, Return of the Living Dead 2, starring former podcast guest James Caron. And you may not have seen his work in films like Blade Runner, Teen Wolf, About Last Night, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. How busy is this guy? He's also starred in his own well-received documentary, Super High Me, his own original off-Broadway play, The Marijuana Loogies.
The Marijuana Logs.
The Marijuana Logs.
He should have called it Loogies.
Yeah, Marijuana Loogies is a much better title. I like.
Well, yeah, I think you probably also would have called it the Vagina Loogies.
Yeah,
He would.
and he's also the fellow member of the podcast community and the host of the successful shows Getting High with Doug.
That's Getting Doug with High. That's a typo.
Yeah. Oh, okay. See, now you fucked up.
I fucked up.
See, we don't really care about you, Doug. And we're getting...
That's what I get.
All of
That's what I get for having a title where it's supposed to,
yeah,
it's
that
supposed
one was
to be
my
wrong
fault.
on purpose.
And, of course, the wildly popular and inventive Doug Loves Movies. Or maybe it's Movies Love Doug. I don't care at this point. Which has featured guests including John Lithgow, Amy Poehler, John Hamm, and even yours truly. Please welcome to the show the truest, hardest working man in show business. A man who once wrote game show questions for Wink Martindale and co-starred with the legendary Michael Jackson in a film directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Our pal, Doug Benson.
Hey,
Doug.
how's it going? I don't know what to say after all that. Thank you, Gilbert. That was a lot of things. That was
You've done a lot of things.
That's the
a lot
best
of things
review.
about me.
That's the best review I've ever gotten. That was a lot of things.
Yeah, he came out and did a lot of things. Thanks for having me. This is my first. I've never done a Skype podcast or a podcast via Skype.
Now I have to ask you, is this the way you look normally, or are you stoned every second?
Well, people assume I'm stoned all the time, so I might as well be, is my approach to it. I could have worn my sunglasses just to ease you into it. Where are they? Oh, there they are.
We just had Belzer here on the show, so we had a guest with the sunglasses.
And he has the sunglasses on the whole time?
No, he took them off.
Oh, okay. Because I always assume those guys that leave them on, like, Nicholson and Robin Thicke, I just assume that they're just high out of their minds and just don't want anybody to know. But that's a dead giveaway, having the sunglasses on the whole time.
Look at that. It's like we're interviewing George Shearing.
How's that? Oh my God! Let me blow some dust off of that reference.
Yeah, that's welcome to the show.
That one's for the millennials.
Yeah.
They're gonna eat that one up.
We had Belzer here. We were doing Vivian Vance references. So that's this show, Doug. We're lost in time.
The kids like it.
I love it. Yeah, they do. I mean, it's a chance to learn. Just listen to Uncle Gilbert and learn a thing or two. You little shits.
I like that reference.
Yeah, Uncle Don.
Yeah, Uncle Don.
Yes.
Bless your heart.
That'll hold those little shits for a while.
You're a throwback, Doug. You want to ask him about Captain EO?
Yes, you were in the Michael Jackson Captain EO film.
Yeah, it was an attraction that was at Disneyland for varying periods of time, depending on where Michael was at in the legal process, and and then they were able to bring it back triumphantly when he was dead, because there probably wouldn't be any allegations once he was gone, and then now it's gone again. I don't know if it'll ever return, but Francis Ford Coppola went way over budget, and on the last day of shooting, they just decided to hire $50 a day extras instead of keeping the dancers on. So the very last scene of the movie, I'm dancing around like a fool in a costume that was previously worn by a professional dancer.
Great. Can we see you in this if we get our hands on it?
It's it's on YouTube, but it's very hard to make out which one is me, because they very smartly edited it in a way where you can't really tell how bad we all are at dancing. We're all just like jumping around like fools. They tried to give us choreography, and the choreographer gave up. And
now you don't appear to have a dancer's physique.
No, I don't. I didn't then either, but I was certainly skinnier, but I still found the costume very embarrassing to stand around in all day. Didn't even take a picture of myself in it. So if people want to say, we don't believe that's you in that movie, I'm fine with that.
Well, I'm fascinated by how much extra work you did back in those days.
That was my entry into Hollywood. Is I was like, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. I grew up in San Diego.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to just go to L.A. and I'm just going to, even if it's on the outskirts of show business, I'm only going to do jobs that are show business related. So I was a tour guide at Universal, and I handed out those things where you get people to come to research screenings for movies.
Okay.
And I was an extra, and then eventually like a stand-in on tons of movies and TV shows.
You were standing for Patrick Dempsey in a movie called A Good Movie, and The Mood.
Yeah, the movie turned out really good.
Yeah.
It was
Phil Alden Robinson?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a real arduous shoot, though. Like, it had 75 locations in 60 days or something. And there's no scene in the movie that's longer than like 2 minutes long. So it's got a lot of stuff to cover. And it's a period piece, so everybody had to be in period attire. So it was real interesting. And Patrick Dempsey worked every day. So it was my first, chance to just be there every day for the making of a movie.
You know that movie, The Woo Woo Kid?
No.
Oh, it's a good movie. Yeah.
And now,
it's about this guy, Sonny Wisecarver.
Sonny Wisecarver.
He was like 15 years old and just getting married to adult women.
Yeah.
Repeatedly.
He's a bigamist.
and you were talking, because, Captain EO and all these other Disney little films that they have at the theme park, as well as Universal, also has the 3D films.
Yeah.
And like there at those theme parks, the 3D is pretty amazing. And you were talking about how like it's so disappointing to see feature films in 3D.
Yeah, it's just not the same. Captain EO and even like they got a Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon ride at Universal now.
Oh.
It's the 3D is like people sitting in the audience, especially children, like reach up to try to touch the things that are coming out of the screen. And I've never had that experience with these 3D movies in a theater. It's more like there's depth rather than stuff coming physically out of the screen at you.
And even in that way, I saw House of Wax in 3D. They re-released it.
Saw that in a theater?
Yeah.
With the paddle ball man.
The Powerball was the only thing that worked. The paddle ball.
Yeah.
only thing that worked in that movie. And the rest of it, you see depth, but it's the characters themselves. It looks like a pop-up card.
Yeah.
Because the actors look flat.
Yeah.
You look like you could reach into the screen, but the actors are cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, film already has depth, so it's not really that necessary to add to the depth of the movie. You could still see foreground and background on film, you know?
Remember,
I heard that I never saw the Three Stooges 3D films. They did about 2 or 3 of them where you had to wear glasses, and I've never seen but I've heard those are actually good.
Yeah, especially if you like getting hit in the face with a hacksaw.
Yes.
who doesn't? You remember in the 80s there was a 3D, there was like a brief 3D revival, and they released that movie Coming at You?
Oh, yeah.
Like I was throwing a tomahawk at the camera.
And yeah, they were never, in the movie theaters, it never works that well.
When you go to a multiplex, Doug, do you bypass the 3D version and say, fuck it, I'm just going to see the...
because they want to charge you more money to put glasses on. Why do I bother to get LASIK if they're going to make me wear glasses to go to the movies? And then they're often uncomfortable glasses on top of it.
Yes, that helmet thing. I saw Avatar that way, and I got so sick. I actually got a headache and nauseous from the...
Well, like virtual reality does that to me. I get sick after 2 seconds. I get nauseous.
I'd like to see some of your movies in 3D, Gilbert. I might like to see Funky Monkey.
Yes.
in 3D. Doug, I'm fascinated, though, by you coming from San Diego to L.A. I mean, a couple of things. Mm-hmm. You didn't have any designs on being a comic, per se. You just knew that you had to be in show business in some way, shape, or form. Yeah,
I thought I was more in the acting and writing areas. I was already super into writing movie reviews, so that was a route I could have taken. But I discovered stand-up like just a mere 6 months into living in L.A. because a couple of friends of mine, it became one of those things where we all dared each other to go on at a potluck night at the Comedy Store, and the other 2 guys didn't go on. One showed up too late to sign up, and the other one didn't show up at all. And they were just trying to get me to do it, and I did it, and got some laughs. And I even, as I was walking off stage, sitting in the back of the room was Louis Anderson, who said something nice. So it was
nice.
So right out of the gate, I was encouraged, and then 3 or 4 years more of just doing it, whenever I had the time, because when I was doing extra work, the hours were long, and I couldn't necessarily get out and do open mics.
Right.
But eventually I got I started to get better at it, and I've done it ever since.
You were 22?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty young. I mean, Gilbert was 15, which is incredibly young.
Well, that's what I say. Whenever somebody says, what's the best advice you can give somebody that's just starting out in comedy, and it's like, well, start out younger. Start out as soon as possible. Like, every comic all the major comics, most of them are ones that kind of were already, if not in clubs, but at least with their friends were, pretty much doing stand-up from a super young age.
Gil, did you ever think at that age, I just want to be in show business? I would maybe do a little acting? Was it just pure, let me get on a stand-up stage?
I wanted to be in showbiz, yeah. And also, I think I've said this a billion times, I was lucky when I was that young, because you're real stupid when you're that young. So, I wasn't thinking about competition or rejection, or the odds of making it are ridiculously slim.
Yeah, I mean, like, my parents were pretty supportive, but at one point my dad was like, you really think that this can work? Just moving to LA and deciding to be in show business, but for better or worse, it works for a lot of people, because just staying in there, the attrition rate is so high. It's easy for people to give up and move on, and leave the rest of us to it.
Were you a prop comic at the very beginning?
Yeah. My first few years, I had a duffel bag with some random stupid props in it.
I love it,
and like pre-recorded sound effects, and it was. And that's what Louis Anderson said to me when I walked off. He didn't say, great job or that was all fun. He was like, there was some good stuff there, which could have been any one of those
That was still nice.
random things I pulled out. Yeah, it was super nice.
Now, do you find extras to be strange people?
Yeah, I felt like the actors always felt I was strange because, I was so eager and excited to be a part of it because I was a big movie buff and then also wanted to have lines in movies. So I just, did some serious extra overacting just to get attention sometimes. And in Blade Runner, me and my friend figured out that Harrison Ford, we're in the scene where he's running through the street chasing the robot lady and trying to gun her down. Mm-hmm. He's trying to find her. And there's just all these people, it's a crowded future. And he's like just trying to get through the crowd. And me and my buddy figured out that if we got in his way, he would physically push us like really hard. Like he was really like he was super fucking into it. And at one point, my friend, he actually grabbed him like by the lapels and like pushed him against a bus. And I love it. And we loved it. We weren't like trying to get a lawsuit going. We were just excited that Harrison Ford was manhandling us.
Can I? Gilbert, you have to tell Doug your Harrison Ford story.
Yeah,
So you're in a plane.
Yeah, exactly. I was at the Tonight Show, and Harrison Ford was a guest, and he said, "I'm a big fan. I thought you were great in The Aristocrats. That was terrific." And I thought, it was that idiotic thing where you figure, well, I'm a comedian. I better say something funny now, rather than just, hey, Harrison Ford. What a treat. And so I go, oh, thanks. And your name is? And I was always not sure if he got the joke and didn't think it was funny. Or and I live with that for the rest of my life.
So you take it to your grave.
Yeah, I think we've all got some of those where we just didn't say the right thing to, a famous person, and vice versa. People say weird shit to you all the time, I'm sure.
Absolutely. But then I realized I'm not immune to it. They'll come over to me and, they're desperate to say something because a celebrity. And, then it'll become like, oh, so you have a nose on your face or whatever.
What kind of shit do people say to you?
Yeah.
They say stuff like that?
Yeah.
And think you're Bobcat Goldthwait?
You just got to say something.
And then I become the guy when I meet a celebrity saying you have a nose on your face. Or I get that one, and I thought this was Hollywood bullshit, but I do get it. Didn't you used to be Gilbert Gottfried? And I used to hear that on like the Merv Griffin show and stuff. And think it was bullshit. And now I found it's true.
Speaking of awkward interactions with celebrities, and I was going to save this one, Doug, for later, but we'll talk about, where I'm going.
I think maybe.
I won't ask.
I know I've had more than one.
I want to. I was telling Gilbert, and I love Doug Loves Movies, but the one, I guess, was you and Jen Kirkman trying to get Harry Dean Stanton to play ball.
The great Harry Dean Stanton came on Doug Loves Movies, and Gilbert, you've done it here in Los Angeles that one time at that convention. Convention.
You guys were fun together.
I was plugging the documentary. Gilbert, with
Neil was with
Neil
you.
Berkeley. Yeah,
and there's as you could know from having done it, there's a lot of like moving parts and stuff going on that's not necessarily going to be clear to someone who hasn't heard the show before. And this great character actor, Harry Dean Stanton, comes on and, was arranged through publicists. And I said yes just because I wanted to meet him. And I figured if he was kind of cantankerous, everyone would enjoy it. And they did because he wasn't kind of cantankerous. He was
That's the real deal.
He was full fucking cantankerous.
It's great. It's a great show.
Did not want to be there and just didn't want to. Wasn't interested in what I was throwing down, and just some classic moments. Like at one point, Jen Kirkman, like thinking, she's a funny comic, and she was on the panel, so she thought she'd help out. It's kind of like everybody like trying, taking their best shot to make Grandpa happy. And she goes, at the end of Pretty in Pink, you were Molly Ringwald's father. Do you think that she should have gone with Ducky or with the other guy? I forgot his name. And Blair or some shit. And Harry Dean Stanton just takes a beat and goes, I don't give a fuck.
I'm so glad we never had Harry Dean Stanton.
Like she was trying to, what common ground do we have? He was in that movie. I like that movie. Let's talk about that. I don't give a fuck. And then at one point I said something about Twitter and he goes, what's Twitter?
Right.
And Jen and Paul F. Tompkins and I, the three of us, each took a crack of explaining what Twitter was to him. And every time at the end of our explanation, you go, nope, don't get it.
Yep. you left wondering why he even agreed to come on and do the show if he didn't want to speak.
Because he was, publicists were like dragging him around to promote his documentary. And I don't know. I'm sure I had a great time with you, Gilbert, on Doug Lowe's Movies, but you could see where a publicist would just say, yeah, you just go talk to him about movies. Like they don't really warn the guests sometimes what they're going to be in for.
Oh, I thought you guys were good together.
Oh, yeah.
We had a great time. I'm just saying that Gilbert was in the same spot where like people said, hey, you should do this. And he agreed to do it. But then once you're there, you could be like, what the fuck is this?
That's usually Dara, his wife, forcing him to do those things.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, yeah,
I went on and you just let yourself have fun.
Yeah.
Even though you knew very little about your own movie career.
Yeah, yes. You tested me.
Yeah.
It was only until like 10 questions in that I thought, oh, these are all having to do with my career.
These are my movies. Yes. Okay.
And I knew nothing about
Yeah. And you're like, next time I'll be great. And then the next time I'm out of questions, I ask them all.
You had no idea of the format.
There's no Problem Child 3, right?
There was.
Was there?
Yeah.
You weren't in it, though?
I was in it, and Jack Warden, but not John Ritter or the kid. And it was a TV movie. And then the John Ritter part was William Catt from Greatest American Hero.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Gilbert, you had no idea of the format.
Yes.
which was fun. And you couldn't guess Beverly Hills Cop 2.
That's right.
Which you were in, of course. And then I think the topic was Ron Howard on Last Man Stanton. And you couldn't think of Grand Theft Auto and Eat My Dust.
Oh, that's right.
You kept saying those Roger Corman movies.
Yes.
But you were in the ballpark.
And
I would have accepted Grand Theft Dust or Eat My Auto.
Right.
If we ever have Ron Howard on this show, I'm sure that's what I'm going to wind up saying when I introduce him.
We had Clint Howard. I was going to say to you, Doug, have you tried Ed Begley for your show? He'd be fun.
Yeah, I bet he would be.
I think he'd do it. He's that kind of guy.
Yeah, he just might be. But you need some sort of in. You need to get be able to get in touch with people. Like that's something I do. Is I just kind of roll through my Twitter account and just find like verified people that are following me. And then, if it's somebody interesting, I hit them up via Twitter and ask them to come on the show, and it works.
Well, he's a sport.
And Frank and I were talking, and this may come as a shock to everyone listening. You said you had a strange time on your show with Anne Heche. I don't see how that could be possible.
Well, it's... Heche is a strong word. I would say
very good.
She's more like and dislike. We just didn't hit it off, but in retrospect, I think we both realize where things went wrong. Like I don't have any kind of animosity with her because we have a mutual friend who agrees with both of us that I'm hilarious and she ruined my show. So.
Lithgow was great with you too.
Yeah. He's and I learned how to. He likes Lithgow.
Lithgow.
It's Judd Apatow and John Lithgow, so it gets very confusing when they're running around with the same spellings at the end but different pronunciations.
Didn't know that.
But for some reason, Lithgow goes with go, and he was on with Paul F. Tompkins and Jimmy Pardo.
Right.
And Jimmy Pardo will say anything to anybody, and so then he just kept calling him for the rest of the show, Go Lithgow.
Go Lithgow.
And and so that helped me to remember when I hear it. But it doesn't matter. He's a very nice man. He'll answer to either.
By the way, Vulture Magazine called that podcast with Anne Heche the "Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf" of podcasts, which I enjoyed.
But I'm not trying to get the guests. I'm just trying to have fun.
Of course,
of course. Anne Heche just came out because they had a poster for a movie that they were there to promote, her and the director of the movie and then another actress from the movie, and she. The show is going. I mean, I've introduced them. I'm going to start talking to them, and she starts screaming, "I need some duct tape! Somebody bring me some duct tape!" And I was like, you know what? I don't like your attitude, but I appreciate that you're going to shut yourself up right away. But no, she wanted it to put the poster on tape it to the wall behind where we were sitting. But I kept saying to her, "This is a podcast. People are listening. It doesn't really." Decorating the set isn't really necessary at this point in the show. And it went from there. Like she just did not respond to being asked to do anything.
But out of thousands of shows, you got to have one of those once in a while, right?
Yeah. And then finally at one point she goes, "Are you going to interview me?" And I was like, "No, you clearly don't know what this is. You're not here to be interviewed. You're here to, interact. And, I mean, I'll ask you questions, but we're not going to just sit and talk about you." So it was rough, but the director she was with, he was worse than she was. So that's what became a problem. Is that we ended up having to toss 2 guests out of a 3-guest panel mid-show.
So how did you get rid of her?
I have a very tall friend who happened to be there, and he just he was happy to walk up on stage and kind of shuffled him off the stage. Yeah, and then they were waiting they were watching in the wings as the show continued because Sandra Oh was the other actress and she was terrific. She stayed on the panel. She stayed on the panel and we still did the show. I pulled people out of the audience to replace the director and Anne Heche, and then Anne and the director were watching the show and they kept saying to people that work at the theater, "Hey, we want to go back out there and apologize." And fortunately, the people at the theater said, "No, you don't need to go back out there."
I found it interesting too. I saw an interview with you, and you said that it was Paul actually was asking you to pick a dream guest, and you said Alan Arkin, who's one of ours, as well. But you said you said you're pretty confident he wouldn't be happy to be there.
Yeah, so you'd get full Alan Arkin. You'd get him being a real just unhappy because that's where
that's a curmudgeon.
That's his wheelhouse is just being not into things. There's this new series called Get Shorty that's based on Elmore Leonard materials, but it's not the same story as the John Travolta movie. It's different characters, but it's got
Ray Romano.
Yeah, and it's got he plays an executive who gets involved with a guy in the mob played by Chris O'Dowd, and it's really good. And then some of the episodes are directed by Adam Arkin, Alan's son.
Sure,
and
fan of his too.
Yeah, and so Alan shows up. I don't know how many episodes. I'm midway through binging the season, but Alan Arkin shows up as an old filmmaker who's he's got a walker and stuff. And I think he's a little bit more spry than that. I don't think he needs a walker, but he does some really funny business with it, where he can barely get around even with a walker.
Yeah, Arkin's one of those guys. I think Gilbert and I have discussed this. We'd love to get him here, but we're afraid of the outcome.
Yes.
Yeah, he's just going to.
Yeah, he's going to tell you to Argo, fuck yourself.
Yeah, very good. Here's a wild card question that I know. This is I just wrote odds and ends down on this card.
Can I ask Gilbert something first?
Sure.
Really quick?
Okay.
Because before I forget, did you ever see the Alan Arkin movie? It was him and Peter Falk. It was like trying to get them back together after.
Oh,
the
yes.
in-laws.
Oh my God!
It was,
And it was
like
called
it was
Trouble.
a takeoff on
Big Trouble.
Yeah.
It was a takeoff on that Edward G. Double Indemnity.
Yeah. But there's a scene in that movie, and you can watch just that scene on YouTube, where Peter Falk gives Alan Arkin's uptight character a drink, says, "You got to try this, Sheldon," or whatever his name is in that movie. And then as he's taking a sip of this drink, Peter Falk says, "It's what is it? It's like a fish liqueur," he says. It's like it's a sardine liqueur. That's it, sardine liqueur. And Alan Arkin does one of the funniest spit takes ever, where he doesn't want to just spit it all out, so it just starts spurting out of different sides of his mouth. And he keeps kind of trying to drink it, but still spitting it out.
Yeah, tiny drops are coming out.
Yeah, they're just shooting out of the corners, and it's so fucking funny.
Beverly D'Angelo in that?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
yep.
yeah.
And Charles Durning and
Right.
yeah, it's not a great movie, but that one scene, if people look it up, sardine liqueur, is really, really funny.
He's great. He can't be bad in anything. He's even good in the Jerky Boys movie, dare I say.
Well, listen, I sat through Choo Choo in the Philly Flash.
There you go.
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
He was in a very peculiar
Philly Flash.
He was in a very peculiar film. I mean, he's the perfect actor for it, but it was just he was like Inspector Clouseau
Yeah, right.
in a movie years
They
ago.
did they did one without Sellers, and it was fairly early on in the Pink Panthers movies, and then of course Sellers came back and did a bunch of them. Then eventually, like Roberto Benigni did one.
Oh yes,
Steve Martin did two of them.
Yeah, and the guy from Soap.
Steve Martin? Is there anybody funnier that doesn't need to take somebody else's shtick entirely? Like, I'm just going to go pretend to be Inspector Clouseau.
yes.
It doesn't make any sense.
And there was one Inspector Clouseau movie where Peter Sellers was already dead, and David Niven had some disease.
Oh, yeah, that's the trail of the Pink Panther.
Yeah, and he couldn't speak. Rich Little dubbed in his voice.
Yeah.
But Blake Edwards wouldn't just let the dead lie.
Yeah.
He felt like, maybe I can squeeze a penny out of whatever footage I have here.
Yeah.
And you could see the vultures flying around.
That was the
screen.
one where he had clips and outtakes of Sellers, and it was a compilation movie. Yeah, and then they had Ted Wass, the actor from Soap,
try
to play
he
his
played him
son.
too. Son of
Clouseau.
Oh, that's right.
Panther.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Pink Panther.
And I remember, he was doing like a David Niven imitation, which was coming across like Ronald Coleman, and going, I remember when Inspector Clouseau got locked in the closet. And then they would show a clip of Peter Sellers.
That's a hard one to watch.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Now,
I think I liked him all the way up to like part 5. I think I hung in there pretty far because how ridiculous they started getting with when Kato would jump out at him, out at Clouseau, and they would just destroy entire homes and restaurants, and just with these massive fight scenes that it got so out of hand that I really enjoyed it.
Oh, he knew how to stage a physical comedy scene, Blake Edwards.
Oh yeah.
Those last two are pretty good. The Revenge of the Pink Panther, and I think the one before that is the Pink Panther Strikes Again. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Herbert Lom especially.
And Herbert Lom.
Very funny in that first one when they first come back when he finally gets completely driven mad by Clouseau.
Now, Gilbert was going to pick a bone with you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because you, and I saw this on your pitch show, I can't remember who it was pitching you a Ferris Bueller sequel.
Okay.
And I found out in doing a little deep diving that you like the film. Gilbert is on record here.
Yes. First thing I said to Matthew Broderick when he was a guest on was that I fucking hated Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I thought it was a piece of shit.
And then he was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll be headed towards the door."
No, he was actually
Very
sweet about
nice.
That's what I mean. He's such a sweet guy.
Yes, he is. He is one of those people.
What's he going to do with that information?
I kept telling him how much I liked Election to mitigate.
Yeah.
But
Well, Election is like one of those perfect movies.
It's a masterpiece.
Like, it's really nicely executed. But back to Ferris Bueller. Why do you hate it so much?
I think Ferris Bueller is a little punk ass
Sure.
who thinks he's great and deserves a swift kick in the ass. And it's like he's playing hooky from school. The principal is supposed to go after him. He's lying to his parents. And that he destroys that kid's father's car. And you go, well, fuck it. That's an expensive car. And you destroyed it, you piece of shit. Don't make a point that, he's not getting love and the father loves the car. Of course he takes care of the car. It's a great fucking car.
Yeah, I hear you all on all of that, but it's still a funny movie.
Not to me.
did you ever meet John Hughes?
Fair enough.
Travels?
No.
Met him at the Lampoon or anything?
No,
like that?
but I will tell him.
No,
that
he's
it's
gone. You can't tell him now.
Well, maybe I can go to that little teenage psychic or guy who's on.
You have the hook. The teenage psychic is going to hook you up with John Hughes.
Yeah, he'll.
So you can take a piss on Ferris Bueller.
He could talk to him in the other world.
Here's my issue with it, with the Ferris Bueller, and with every movie where somebody's getting away with something like Catch Me If You Can or Ocean's 11 heist movies.
Yeah.
Whenever I watch that stuff, I'm like, it's so much more exhausting getting the day off from school than just fucking going to school.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, he has to do so much. He has to do so much work to not go to school. And then you never see the character, later in life going, that I needed to get good grades. You mean I have no career possibilities whatsoever because I was so good at ditching?
Yeah. No one thinks I'm that fucking cool now that I'm in my 60s.
They keep talking about doing a sequel, and I think they should really go for it and make Ferris Bueller like a complete loser. Like, everybody he knows probably hates him.
Yeah, have him living in like a rat-infested walk-up because he can't get a decent job. He has no education, and he's still trying to be cool, and people are going, what the fuck, old man? Yeah, you're trying to be hip?
Go back and sing in your shower, you piece of garbage.
And it was like, he takes a day off from school. So for what? They go to a museum.
Yeah, that's like going to fucking school.
Yeah. and
they go to a parade. He takes over a parade.
That was obnoxious.
Yeah. It's a fun scene though.
And then what I hate with the caper movies and those films is it's like the guy they're playing the trick on has to be the biggest fucking idiot on the planet not to know what's going on.
Yeah, and they have to be like very easily upsettable characters because then that sort of masks their not getting it is their own, their own anger.
Yeah, so they had to cast Pacino as the only guy they could get that was angrier than Andy Garcia.
Yeah.
Earlier in the...
You'll bring down my casino!
Yeah, I hated the Ocean's
casino bank.
You don't like the Ocean's Pictures?
I hated the Ocean's Pictures.
Yeah.
So now are you excited for this one with all ladies, Ocean's 8?
Your girlfriend's in it, Sandra Bullock.
Yes,
your girlfriend?
Yeah, but I'm not looking forward to this picture because I hated the one with the guys in it. Why do I want women in it now? How's that going to help?
It's their turn to be hated, Gilbert. # me too.
Doug, can I throw out a couple of quick questions from listeners?
Sure.
This is a thing we call Grill the Guest. We do it through Patreon. A guy named Frank Salerno says, Gilbert co-hosted The Essentials on TCM with Robert Osborne, and he picked 5 of his favorite movies. What 5, or you can give us 3.
I think it was 4.
Was it 4?
Yeah, 4.
What 4 might movie fanatic Doug Benson pick?
Oh, man, that is tough.
Or even 3.
All right, I'm going to go with Aladdin, Beverly Hills Cop 2, and
Problem Child
I want to
3.
have a Gilbert Gottfried Film Festival. I want to have that. That's what I
Funky
would do.
Monkey, How to Be a Player.
How to be a player.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough to just come up with them like that because I have so many favorites, so many movies I like. But since we already mentioned it, Election would be a great one to just, there's just certain movies that you're just confident, that if you show them to people, they'll respond positively. They just haven't had the experience.
Election is one of I like it, but it's such a disturbing, depressing thing to watch.
Well, it's a black comedy like Hollywood doesn't make anymore.
Yeah.
They don't make them.
It's suicidal to watch.
Yeah. That was my wife's reaction.
I mean, that dude's movies have gotten a little, like his most recent one was Downsizing. And
Alexander Payne.
Yeah, that one was kind of rough. But out of the gate, he had like 2 or 3 really good ones in the beginning of his career. And so I'll watch anything he does.
Sideways.
As a result. Yeah, I love Sideways.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Sideways and Citizen
Sideways
Ruth.
is amazing. It's so like even though they're not comedians, it's just like being with another comedian on the road and how you're always on different pages in terms of how much tail you're going to try to chase down and how that ruins the weekend for the other guy.
I think watching Election, I thought this is the kind of movie that they don't, if you look at something like Carl Reiner's Where's Papa?
Yeah.
A real black comedy. A black comedy where people get hurt.
Yes.
Where there's actual darkness.
Yeah.
Where there's where a character is actually pathetic.
Yeah.
Just how the studios don't allow them to be made anymore. Or maybe they don't make money. I mean, Election's one of the last ones I can actually think of.
Yeah, I can't imagine Election was a big money maker.
I can't imagine it either.
Yeah.
It was a novel. You would put Young Frankenstein in that company too?
That's one of my perfect movies. I love every joke in that movie, and I get choked up at the end. I think it has a really satisfying resolution. Gene Wilder, is he's one of my top actors in terms of I'll just watch him in anything. He's amazing.
And I think somebody told me that in The Producers, it was Gene Wilder's idea to do that speech in the courtroom, like he called me Leo.
No kidding.
And that's such a touching, it's like out of like pure insanity of The Producers, there's actually that scene that's very touching and very warm.
Yeah, that Mel Brooks pulled that off in a few of his movies, and Gene Wilder's only in Blazing Saddles because Gig Young was going to play the part.
Yeah.
Yes,
and he showed up drunk the very first day. The scene where he's supposed to be drunk and upside down in the jail cell, he showed up too drunk to even do it. And Mel Brooks just called up Gene Wilder and says, "Hey, will you step in?" And I mean, the part just feels like it was written for him. He's so good in it.
Everything gels.
And I think Mel Brooks said Gig Young was hanging upside down and like white foam was coming out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And Mel Brooks said, "Wow, he's great in this. He really is convincing as this total drunk." And he thought he made such a perfect choice.
And Gilbert was in the last of the originally he was in the last of the Wilder Pryor team-ups.
Yes. I was in for...
Now you see him, now you don't?
No, the one after that.
No, even worse.
Even worse.
Worse than now you see it, now you don't. Worse
I think it was
than
called
that.
See No Evil. It was called See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Because one of them was deaf and one of them was blind.
Because at least See No Evil had Joan Severance do a nude scene.
Correct.
So it was salvageable for that one scene.
Right.
But
she still gets severance checks to this day.
Very good.
So I worked on, for about 2 weeks, with another podcast guest, Peter Bogdanovich, and it was their last one. It was called Another You, and it was god-awful. And then eventually they fired Peter Bogdanovich and got someone else, and then they fired most of the other cast and scraped old previously shot footage and redid it with a new director. And I heard it failed so miserably at box office that one theater in L.A. was showing it once a day. That's the amount of business they were doing.
Yeah, they're committed to it, so they showed it the one time and then just threw something else on the rest of
Who
the
did you
day.
play?
I was like one of their mental patients because Gene Wilder is pretending or whatever that, or they put him in there.
Right. You got that nice picture with Wilder and Pryor out of it.
That was the only thing good to come out of it.
We'll send that picture to Doug.
Yeah.
I want to see that movie now. I don't even remember
Oh, it's
that.
not good.
Oh, it is so bad.
Wasn't that the one where Bogdanovich had to go home for something, so he decided to let his girlfriend direct for a couple of hours?
I heard.
Take
from,
over, honey.
Take over.
From Wilder's nephew. He told me that Peter Bogdanovich was going home, and there was this girl there who was the sister of Dorothy Stratton, who Bogdanovich was going out with then. And he said, well, she'll direct this. And Gene Wilder goes in the classic Gene Wilder way. He goes, well, does she actually know how to direct? And he goes, well, I'm pushing her in that area. So it
Trial by
fills you
fire.
with confidence.
Wow. I did like that Bogdanovich movie, They All Laughed, with John Ritter and Dorothy Stratton. That was
Ben Gazzara.
That was a good movie.
Oh, and you know what else they did in that prior Wilder film? That is another thing that drives me nuts in movies. They brought in Kevin Pollak as a new mental patient, and they did that thing. I would like to get every fucking psychiatrist who ever lived in a room and say to them, have you ever once had a mental patient who does celebrity impressions? I've seen that in movies and TV shows where the guy's crazy. So I go, how are you doing today, Mr. Brown? Oh, you dirty rats. And it's like...
It's like the couch trip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But comedies about mental patients are particularly bad.
Oh, because they're always so cute and adorable.
Yeah, except for Charlie Callis's character in High Anxiety. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And I think the other thing that movies do is if you're in an asylum or you're in the intensive care unit of a hospital, you just need to be removed from there and you're okay. Like crazy people are perfectly normal outside the asylum, and people who are dying are like getting laid and playing sports outside the hospital.
Yeah. Wearing a gown that's got a split in the back, revealing your ass, makes you insane. As soon as you get out of that, put on regular clothes, normal time.
Here's one other one from a listener, Doug. This is from Sean Lou, L-O-U. Please ask Doug, I am a big fan, but is he actually high all the time, or is it more of an act, kind of like Foster Brooks? Do you remember Foster Brooks?
Yeah, Foster Brooks, he was a beloved television
alcoholic.
You know, he'd be on panels a lot,
right.
And his whole shtick was that he was just drunk as fuck.
Yep, on roasts. A lot of Dean
everyone
Martin.
Everyone was down with it. Nobody, Mothers Against Drunk Driving wasn't a thing yet.
And before him, there was Crazy Guggenheim,
Yeah,
Frank
Fontaine, right.
Yeah.
Guggenheim is so great.
and in all the old movies, it was like that was it. You had a funny drunk.
Yeah, well, Fields,
Yeah.
W.C. Fields made
Yes.
a career of it.
Yeah, Ray Milland in The Lost Weekend.
Hilarious. Days of Wine and Roses, Jack Lemmon.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, becoming an alcoholic team, like there's lots of comedians, famous comedians and comedic actors that like that was their big dramatic turn was the movie or TV show where they were, had problems with alcohol.
Well, like Dick Van Dyke.
In the
He
comic.
did-
Yeah.
yeah, but
The
also
comic.
Great movie.
He
Yeah,
was
it is
also in a
underrated.
movie that was a TV movie where he's just an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He's not.
I think he played a priest for Stanley Kramer, too, who was an alcoholic.
Oh, the runner
stumbles. Yeah. I asked him about that on this podcast, and he didn't. He wasn't very responsive. He thought he was bad in it.
He was
Yeah.
more into talking about Night at the Museum.
Yes. Well, we try to go back with these people. By the way, I just as not apropos of nothing, Doug, but the Dan Van Kirk's Mark Wahlberg, you give him props because it's both wonderful and disturbing.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing that he's managed to create, and now Dan Van Kirk is jealous of his Mark Wahlberg character's success. So
He's Dan Mark Wahlberg.
So because he does such a good Mark Wahlberg, people really believe it's him that are just listeners and haven't seen it live. So we're in talks to phase the character out so he can get some publicity as himself.
Really? That's funny. Well, he's so good.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, but and he takes off the wig and he'll join me outside with the fans after a show, and nobody even realizes it was the same guy that was just up there killing it as Wahlberg.
Do you guys want to try? In Doug's honor, I said we would play a trivia game. This is not as classic as the Leonard Maltin game. I warn you, but
Okay.
it is about Gilbert's career. So he has a fighting chance.
He has a really good chance
to compete.
I got everything wrong on Doug's show.
This
my career.
is an homage to Doug Benson. I even gave it a name. It's called Suspicious Characters.
Okay.
Did Gilbert play a character with this name, or is it total bullshit?
Okay.
You want to try it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The first.
So who do we take turns guessing?
Yeah, you go first. And
Okay.
Lucky Larry Lupin. Did he play a character named Lucky Larry Lupin?
I'm going to say that he did. Yes.
You are correct. Gilbert, do you remember where?
Now it was one of two places. It could have been Saved by the Bell, Wedding in
No,
Vegas.
these are only features.
Oh, features.
Yep.
Larry Lupin.
I never heard of this movie, so I'm assuming it wasn't released. 1989?
Well, I mean, because I remember having a name like that in the TV movie Saved by the Bell, Wedding in Vegas, and then I did an episode of Living Single.
No, these are features. It's called Never on Tuesday.
Oh my God! Yes, yes. Claudia Christian. Oh,
He remembers.
it had everyone. I didn't work with them, but every one of those hip actors back then, of like both Sheen brothers.
Oh, it was a
did,
Brat Pack.
Yeah, they both did appearances. They weren't the stars, but they both, because they knew the director. And the guy, what's his name? Judd Hirsch.
Uh-huh. Was it Judd Nelson or Judd Hirsch?
Judd Nelson.
Okay,
Judd Nelson.
I was wondering what Judd Hirsch is
This
doing
is
in there.
when Judd Hirsch was one.
Judd
of
for the
Brat
defense.
Pack. And I think what's his name? Gary, that English guy who was in Princess Bride.
Carrie Elwes.
Carrie Elwes.
Yeah, another good movie. Okay, you go. So
That's
you're one
another
for one,
to
Doug.
Yes.
Seek out.
Now I'm going to let Gilbert sit this one out because this one's easy for him, but maybe harder for Doug. Did he play a character named Johnny Crunch on screen?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
He did.
Very good.
Was it in? Can I guess the movie?
You sure can.
Yes.
Was that his name in The Adventures of Ford Fairlane?
God damn.
Absolutely.
That deserves applause.
And can you name my actual name? Well, before he changed it to Johnny Crunch.
Oh, because you
changed it?
talk about that in the dialogue?
Yeah.
Because you're like a DJ or something, is Johnny Crunch, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember the initial name.
I think I'm Johnny Teitelbaum.
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
You've seen The Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Of course,
God bless
I mean, I'm a Rennie Harlan completist for one.
Oh, my God.
Because he's made some great movies.
That means you had to see Cutthroat
The Last
Island.
Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis and Sam Jackson's a classic.
Our friend Craig Bierko.
love that
And
movie.
where is Gina Davis now?
Out there with a bow and arrow somewhere.
She's doing work for women
She is?
behind the scenes,
Yeah.
trying to get women more cred and more respect in
Oh,
films.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's doing good work.
She's back in the whole Me Too thing, but she seriously was a competitive archer for a while.
Yes.
Wow.
Very good. Very good. I'd like to point out our friend Craig was wonderful in The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Craig
too.
Bierko is an amazing villain in that movie. Brian Cox is
Yes.
great in it. It's a really good movie.
Have
I
Craig
recommend
on.
it.
Have Craig on your show when he's out there. You won't
I always say the name wrong though. It's The Long Kiss Goodnight, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I always
Yes.
say Last Kiss or Last Action Hero Kissing.
Yeah. Here's another one.
okay.
Did he play a character named? I know you'll know this, Gil. Did he play a character named Googie Withers?
Well, it feels like at some point you have to make up a name that he's never played.
He's way ahead of me.
So it might as well be Googie.
Googie Withers is, in fact, you're 3 for 3, a British actress from the 30s.
Oh, wow.
She worked for Hitchcock.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I should play her in a movie.
I was always good at these kind of tests, because you just cheat and
2 more quick ones.
assume that a fake one's coming.
Did he play a character named Mario Zucchini?
I'm going to say yes to that
He
one.
did.
Yes.
Very good.
I didn't know he was in the VeggieTales movie, but
Gil, you want to
Very
tell him when you
excited.
played Mario Zucchini?
Well, I heard, in fact, just recently, I heard it was an animated feature, and it's got good like Stallone and Ian McKellen and
Ian McKellen's in
Yeah.
it? Jesus.
Danny DeVito. I mean, lots of people, and I heard it was released, but it it never got an American release.
Animal Crackers is the movie.
Yeah, Animal Crackers. Not to be
they
confused.
released it, but nobody caught it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still running through the jungle. Yeah.
Here's the last one. And you've been 4 for 4 here. 4 for 4
Yeah,
or
so
5
I'm going
for
to blow
5?
it on this one.
No, you're not. Did he play a character named Dr. Spleen?
I don't know. That seems a little on the nose. Like, I mean, why? You know what I mean? Like Dr. Liver or Dr. Thorax.
Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard.
I'm going to say that's a fake one.
Gil?
Now, was that in Gender Benders?
No, you played Dr. Spleen in Funky Monkey.
Funky Monkey.
That's the name in Funky
I
Monkey.
was Dr. Spleen.
I'm sorry,
Lucky
A
Doug.
to
movie
meet-
I haven't seen. But I'm sure it's as good as
That's
the
the
critics say
forceps
it is.
nurse gallbladder.
I believe our former guest Ed Begley is in Funky Monkey with you. Or was that Back by Midnight with Rodney?
Back by Midnight.
So who's in Funky Monkey? I misspoke.
Okay. Oh, well, Taylor Negron.
Oh, the late great Taylor Negron.
Yeah. Matthew Broderick.
Matthew Broderick's in Funky
Not
Monkey.
Matthew Broderick. Not Matthew
McConaughey.
Matthew Modine.
Oh, Matthew Modine. That's a different.
Wow,
Matthew
we're getting to the
Modine.
bottom of the list of Matthews.
And
Matthew Brady.
the actress from Touched by an Angel. Not Della Reese.
Oh, the other actress, the religious actress.
Yes.
I can't remember her name off the top of my
The
head.
one that talks like this.
Yeah, it's an R. I can't think of her name. Why can't I think of her name? It'll come to me.
Rona.
Rona. Yeah, not Barrett.
Something. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
But,
God.
yeah. I know
Taylor
who you mean.
Negron was a great comic
The best.
and a super guy. But this is Gilbert might enjoy this. This is the This is my impression of Taylor Negron asking me about the gym that I just walked out of because I ran into him on the street outside my gym. And he said to me, "Is it loud?"
We love that guy, and we were kicking ourselves. There are a couple of guests over the years. We've done this for 4 years that we weren't able to get on the show for one reason or another, and he was one of them. And a sweetheart of a person.
Yeah, super nice guy. I had the pleasure of running into him a few times and hanging out, and he was always great.
Roma Downey.
Roma Downey.
Roma.
Yes,
Just popped into my head.
I love that when that happens. You know,
You
when it
love
doesn't
what-
pop into your head, that's when you have Alzheimer's. So just be alert.
Now, Doug, do you have a weakness for particularly bad horror films? Because with the movie interruption, I know you do all kinds of films. You did Babe, Pig in the City, but Mac and Me, which I believe is that really bad E.T. knockoff.
God.
Oh yeah, that thing's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's like a 2-hour McDonald's commercial.
Yeah, it's very much. They're like, well, if E.T. could push Reese's Pieces, why don't we fucking just put McDonald's front and center in one of these dumb alien movies?
And even calling him Mac.
Mac, yeah, like the kid loves McDonald's so much he meets an alien, he names it after McDonald's, and then starts shoving fries down its throat.
You know what was another classic film that was a McDonald's commercial? Was House Guest
Oh yes.
with Phil Hartman
And Sinbad.
and Sinbad.
Yeah.
And there is a scene.
How did you not turn up in that?
Oh my God! It was certainly
Where the
bad
fuck was
enough.
Larry Lupin?
Yeah.
Yes. And first, there is a scene where all of us, he's in the street, and you see all the lights are off, but a McDonald's is well lit up, and they play like a very religious sounding "You Deserve a Break Today" as he runs in slow motion
God.
in ecstasy toward McDonald's.
Well, we just sit and watch. Leprechaun movie started because one year at South by Southwest we did the first Leprechaun on St. Patrick's Day, just because it was a fun theme thing. And then I just decided that so for the next 5 St. Patrick's Day we did each, Leprechaun 2. Leprechaun in Space, Leprechaun in the Hood, Leprechaun Back in the Hood. We're just going through all of them, and they're all super terrible and just fun to make fun of. We just sit in the audience with microphones, me and some other comedians, and just, say stuff the whole time. And so we've done a lot of the Fast and Furious movies.
Right.
And the Twilight movies are very good for that. And, it's just a fun experience. But horror movies tend to be easy to make fun of, and you have a lot of opportunity for talking because there's not a lot of dialogue usually.
Well, you did Anaconda and you did Cabin
Yeah.
Fever.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all. Have you ever seen Anaconda?
Yes, with J-Lo and...
Was that the one that had the misspelling on the poster? I think there's one. It might be Anaconda.
Where they spell Anaconda wrong?
Yeah, they
I know
spelled
that
something wrong on the poster.
Although I enjoyed John Voight in it.
John Voight
doing that
he-
Spanish.
You know what? The budget on that movie was all for the scenery because John Voight ate all of it every single day. He was just chewing away at the scenery constantly. He gets swallowed by the anaconda, spoiler. He gets swallowed by it, but then manages to get kind of burped back up for a second. And when he comes back up, his final thing he does before the anaconda just swallows him whole is he winks at the camera. It's amazing.
I remember.
It's amazing.
Have you done Brando's Island of Dr. Moreau?
We haven't. I don't think we've done it, but it certainly would be a candidate. That movie is it's fascinating.
It is.
How strange that movie is.
And I love how in that movie, at one point, the Brando character dies, and Val Kilmer is sitting there dressed as Brando, doing a Brando imitation.
Yeah, he does a really good impression.
Yeah, but
It's disturbing.
It's a great impression, but you're going, what the fuck is he doing that impression for?
I think Frankenhammer gave up by that point.
I think so.
Just mailed it in.
And that movie had the original Mini-Me. Like Mini-Me
That's
from
right.
Austin Powers was based off of Marlon Brando had that little guy that was always by his side and dressed in identical outfits.
And I think I might be the only one. I don't know. I think the very weakest Creature of the Black Lagoon movies is better than Shape of Water.
Wow.
There's a lot of detractors with The Shape of Water. I loved it, but a lot of people did not get that movie, did not get on board.
Yeah, it should have been called Fuck a Fish. And then I would have liked it.
That's all. You just need more honesty in the title?
Yes, Fuck a Fish.
That's it, huh?
You thought you were going to walk out of there with some knowledge about what is The Shape of Water? I would like to learn that.
Yeah.
You know, you're never going to get the tour of Guillermo del Toro's house now.
No.
The haunted house.
He's got a pretty great sense of humor, that guy, though.
He does.
I don't think he'd be upset by a Fuck a Fish reference.
Yeah. Now,
I think he knows what his movie was about.
I'm going to set you up, Gilbert.
Uh-oh.
Here, Doug had a roommate. Do I have this right, Doug? Who was an actor on the Mr. Belvedere sitcom?
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I'm asking you this question is so Gilbert can tell a ridiculous story.
Okay.
Let's see if I can remember it.
Because Doug went to tapings every week when he used to go to sitcom tapings.
One time I was filming something on some sound stage. I don't know, like an appearance on a sitcom, whatever. And the big word around the sound stage, they were also shooting Mr. Belvedere. And Christopher Hewitt had to be the show had to be shut down, and Christopher Hewitt had to be rushed in an ambulance to the hospital because he accidentally sat down on his balls.
Yeah. His own balls, as we say, because, could have been balls he owns, could have been a few softballs or basketballs. But no, his own genitals got underneath him.
You've heard this story.
No, because that's, I think, I got to take some of the credit for most of everybody everywhere knowing this story. Because the actor who played Kevin, one of the kids on the show, he came home from work early, and I was one of his roommates, and we were like, "Why are you home early?" And he very matter-of-factly just said, Mr. Belvedere sat on his own balls.
So it's true. It's been confirmed.
See, I was there on the sound stage. So on the sound stage, it was the word, you could go up to somebody cleaning the urinals, and they would say, "Oh, Mr. Belvedere sat on his balls."
Yeah. I told, at the time I told Adam Sandler, and he told so many people that I read in a book by Jay Moore about how Adam Sandler was working on the set of the story got all confused.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
So suddenly Adam Sandler was on the set of Mr. Belvedere when it happened, but that's the sort of thing that, those show business stories, they kind of get lost, but the actual sitting on of the balls, suspending a day of work, I can confirm that really happened.
How about
that? And then a couple weeks later, they were doing a Peter Pan episode because Christopher Hewitt plays Captain Hook in the Broadway musical of it, and they had him on wires, and the wires broke, and he landed on his balls.
Oh!
Oh my God!
I hadn't heard that second half.
Oh
yeah,
my
it
God!
happened again, or at least he was, the injury was,
You'd think
the injury was aggravated.
You'd think they'd keep him off wires.
You think just being in the harness would be he'd be like, "No, thank you." Like he would be very much against that, but apparently that happened.
But so we've got confirmation.
See, we thought that was one of those Hollywood bullshit urban myths, but it's been confirmed.
Because I remember on the set there, it was like practically the soundstage shut down. Because everybody was talking about it, that Mr. Belvedere sat on his balls.
I even for a while in my stand-up comedy act, I'd say, "Here's my impression of Mr. Belvedere sitting on his own balls," and the whole impression is just, "Oh."
Very good. Oh, that's all I got, Gil. You got anything else?
What else could we possibly talk about? We've said it all.
You could tell Gilbert about Suzanne Summers. I think he'd appreciate that.
Oh, my goodness. That's where I learned the expression. When I saw Suzanne Summers in person for the first time is where I learned what the expression camel toe meant.
Oh!
Because me and a bunch of other kids went to a taping of Three's Company, and it was oversold, so they just had to sit in another soundstage at CBS and watch the whole taping on monitors, which was still kind of cool, I guess. But then the whole cast, as you know, John Ritter was a sweetheart. The entire cast came out and just did like a Q&A with those of us that were in the overflow crowd. But Suzanne Summers not only was wearing the tightest pants I'd ever seen at that point in my life, but she was also just lounging, like laying down on the stage while she was talking to us. And so it was really, really at eye level in front of a bunch of high school kids. And the girl sitting next to me goes, "Check out that camel toe." And then it was in the bus on the way home that I found out what a camel toe is.
See, Gil, for you, we wrapped with Hewitt sitting on his balls and camel toe.
Yes.
We like to keep it.
Yes.
Like to keep it classy.
Yeah, that's a really great way to wrap it up. Thanks,
Doug,
you guys.
You got any plugs, Doug? Tell us what's coming up. A million things.
Well,
I'm sure.
These things, you never know when people are going to get around to checking this podcast episode out. So
a couple of weeks,
to keep it evergreen. Yeah. Some guys, you record a podcast with them, like 2 years later, somebody will go, "Hey, I just heard this new episode you're on." Sometimes they sit on them. I don't get it. I think you should put it out immediately. But DougLovesMovies.com is where all my tour dates, and I do Doug Loves Movies live all over the country and Canada, and I'm doing some stand-up and some movie interruptions, just doing lots of different kind of shows. But DougLovesMovies.com is all we need to say.
Will you bring back the marijuana loogies?
Well, it was so exciting, however many years ago it was that we did that, 10, 13 years ago. But, with all this legalization, it's just you can't really coast on the taboo aspect of the material, I still, of course, do weed jokes, but I don't know if we could bring it back.
Sure.
Do you think anyone actually laughs at the Cheech and Chong movies nowadays?
They're kind of slowly paced.
There's good stuff in them, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're movies for watching while you're getting high, and have it on in the room, and you can do other things, and the plot is still going to be Cheech is trying to get weed and sex, and Chong is getting weed and sex, and he's not helping Cheech out at all.
Yeah. Cheech was fun on your show, by the way.
Oh, yeah, they both have been on my shows.
I didn't hear Tommy.
And Tommy sat in on the Marijuana Logs in New York, like he'd just come and do performances of it. In fact, we went on a little tour with him where the idea was that the three original guys would be on tour with Tommy Chong, so we'd rotate. We'd all go on the tour, but only two of us would go on each night with Tommy in the third seat. And the second day of the tour, Tommy calls for a meeting in the lobby, and he's like, "We've got to quit the tour, man." And we're like, "What's up?" And he was at that time on probation because he had gotten out of prison. He was in prison for 9 months for selling weed.
Right, I remember.
Weed devices through the mail. It was total shitty thing that they arrested him for. They got him on. He even went to jail or high, what do they call it? A minimum security prison. He went because his son would have had to go because it was his son's business. So Tommy basically threw himself on the sword. But Tommy had been married for a long time up until that point. So he says it was a nice break going to prison.
I'm sure. I'm sure it was.
I think Tommy Chong said he doesn't smoke nowadays because he said smoking makes you slow and stupid. And he goes, now he's older, so he already is slow and stupid.
He might have made that joke, but he's still smoking. Oh, and that's what happened on the tour is that we thought it was going to be great because, we had done 2 cities. We had done Vancouver and Seattle, and at both shows, the audience just throws weed at Tommy. Like there's just weed at his feet, and we just pick it all up and keep it. But then the tour got canceled after 2 days because he was on probation, and apparently it's a violation of your probation if people throw weed at you.
Interesting.
He's like, I can't get away from it, man. So that was kind of a bad moment. But then we made up a lot of the dates later once his probation was over, and now he's out there. He and Cheech both have their own brands of weed that they're out there selling, and life is good.
This was an historic episode.
Yes.
Because we confirmed something that has been long rumored.
Yep, Tommy Chong smokes weed.
No, that wasn't it.
Yes.
It is confirmed.
That the Cheech and Chong movies are slow. Yes. Well,
What? Go ahead.
I'm Gilbert Gottfried.
You are.
This has been Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my co-host Frank Santopadre, and we've been talking about camel toe and how Mr. Belvedere sat on his own balls with Doug Benson.
Thank you, Doug.
Quite a headline to describe the episode.
Thanks for schlepping and doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.